Good afternoon, everyone. So I'd like to welcome the esteemed panelists for this session, Nida, Yuvaraj, Pooja, and Rahul. So we'll have a quick discussion around the role of HR on global talent management and the challenges that we regularly face. So with this, I'd like a quick intro about your organizations to start with and what kind of challenges that you face. And based on that, we'll take the discussion forward. So I'd like to start with Nida.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Thalise. Thank you, BW, for inviting us. I'm sure this is a slightly better session because the other session has happened after the lunch and will not bore you. At least we'll try. So I represent an industry which is an OEM, and we also have steel manufacturing, but primarily an electric vehicle OEM. The challenges, so let me give a background that I won't talk of just global, but we'll talk of the multi-locational because I think we in India has diversity and cultural differences. So we have people who are not just multi-locational, but people who are multi-generational. So we have people from 18, 19 years to 70-year working because it is manufacturing. So people, Indian organization, so you become consultant even after retirement because you actually have skill and knowledge which you bring on table. So it is about managing the whole dimension from having somebody who is a different generation and from one generation to another and to another. So decades of experience put together in one organization. So that's one challenge. The other is the skill sets. So we will have people on shop floor also, and we have people who are very B.Tech, M.Tech, and PhD in so drones, aeronautics, and different mechatronics. So different skills. And when it comes to electric vehicle, which is a very disruptive industry today, so the challenges are not just internal but external also. So how do we manage is something which we have to adapt every day, and we are trying to learn ourselves and growing along. So that's something I have at least for now 2 years and learned in my organization. The biggest, I would say, what has helped me is two words. One is cultural intelligence and one is social intelligence, which I think trying to adapt and embrace. Because we are in India are so different that when we talk of global, not very different, I would say, because I think in our country itself, we see so much of diversity. So I think that's what I have as an experience.
I'll come to Rahul. Rahul, you come from hospitality. So what are the challenges in terms of talent pool that you have? And what are the regular things that you face at work?
Uh, Good evening, all of one. This is Rahul. Actually, I'm from hospitality background from Radisson 29, Gurgaon. Uh, actually, I'm from hospitality, so Atithi Devo Bhava. So this is the formula which we are following. So basically, if we talk about the challenges we are facing, everybody knows after COVID, so many changes has done, like uh, I mean with especially with the hospitality industry, shortage of manpower. So these kind of things which we faced. So if we talk about this changes, so how we come up with this new formulas, right? New strategies, recruitment strategies, right? Selection strategies, training and development strategies, right? So we have to change and we have to think about these strategies also, compensation benefits, right? So if we talk about like if you talk about my industry or my hotels, we promote basically unsung hero kind of policies we have, like who have disabled. We have one employee who can't speak. So recently he got the award from the hotel India in conclave. So these kind of things which we are doing, and and if you talk about like other things like in hospitality industry, people are like uh, zero to VP level. They promote. We train them, and trainings are very important in today's scenario. So we have to change this in strategies.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rahul. Rahul, you spoke about diversity. I think you're working for PWDs right now, hiring people. So with this we'll discuss a little further in the next question. So with this we'll move to Pooja. Pooja, we had a discussion earlier, and we're talking about the global talent management. So we'd like to understand that and a bit about OLX strategies in that.
Super. Thanks, Thalise, and thanks for the invite as well. This is a fabulous topic and one that is very close to my heart for the last, I would say, 3-4 years, ever since we incubated OLX Autos and grew it across 11 markets. And also for folks who really don't know the context of OLX Autos, it's in the business of second-hand car selling, and so there is a customer journey to handle and so on and so forth across 11 countries. Latin America, US, Indonesia, India, Turkey, Poland, and so on. So in my head, talent management, if I were to really define it, it would largely be that you train your people so well that they're willing to leave you, but you sort of treat them so well that they are willing to stay with you. You know, that's the summary of talent management in my brain. And for us, when we started OLX Autos, we also were in a journey of integrating two companies together, which came with cultural differences across Latin America, India. Indonesia, not very far away, but there were cultural differences. There were differences with Europe, and then we were sort of establishing a product and tech unit separately, and we were establishing a sales and a refurbishment unit and a sort of, last mile talent unit separately. And there is where you actually realize that when you have to sort of do talent management, you also realize that there are top 30 to 40% of your employee base that will constantly travel. And when they constantly travel, that 30 to 40% needed to be trained really well on keeping them engaged on cross-cultural evolution, understanding what that cultural nuances really meant, and therefore diversity, equality, inclusion really became a very big part of it. It was almost like you had to bring, layer by layer into the ring of understanding what does inclusion really mean, despite the fact that we were in a COVID environment. As soon as the COVID went and there was this burst of travel that happened, we had challenges of time zone matching, we had challenges of sort of understanding cultural languages, we had challenges, and lots of technology was helping us. But at the same time, the speed of decision making itself differs in different markets. And so, when you actually have to do all of that, you have to figure out as an organization, and these were some of our mistakes that we made, but we sort of had to correct them really fast, that you have to figure out what are your top 5 or 6 non-negotiables in a culture. Those ones you sort of establish as foundation, you build engagement over that, and then you sort of go through a journey of mapping your talent, figuring out segmentization of what really will work with that talent, what's the basket of sort of training programs or engagement programs or policy programs that you can offer that will sort of bring in the global talent management framework for you. So overall, I think that's been our global experience, but there's lots more to talk about in terms of, you can start from onboarding and schooling to getting to figuring out how do you increase productivity with onboarding in different markets. And each onboarding experience is extremely different. US onboards with one person in one store and does everything themselves. In India, you need 7 people to man a store. And that's itself an efficiency challenge, but it's also an onboarding challenge. And so you have to go through that journey to figure out what are some things that you will infuse in some locations, and therefore one size does not fit all. So you have to figure out what's the extent of standardization you build. and what's the extent of flexibility you can build in so that hybrid and also scalability can be sustainable in the long run. So that's been some of our experiences of managing global talent.
Lovely. So this is a bit too much, for me to grasp right away. But with this, we'll go to Yuvaraj. And Yuvaraj, you have worked in various industries before MMT. So I'd like to understand what has the experience, the differences between the talent management that has been there, between those and the current roles that you handle.
Yeah, thank you, Talis, and great to be here in the Business World event. It's always not only interesting to be a part of the panel discussion as a precursor to the awards, but also be a part of a jury and look at young talent. It's an interesting topic, and I was thinking that, where should one really start from when it comes to global talent? Looking at global talent management, one thing is very important to understand the geography which you are talking about. And if you talk about geography, Talis, you'll also realize that every country gets categorized into the developed country, developing country, and underdeveloped countries, right? And if you understand this overall framework, or anybody understands this framework, it becomes very easy to figure out what works and what doesn't work, right? All these three segments of countries will operate very differently in terms of their statutory regulations, in terms of cultural nuances, quality of talent available or quality of talent they are looking for becomes very different from one to other. So any HR professional, when looks at skills around this and also global talent management, first thing is very important to figure out or understand that it's different. And I'm sure that Pooja has spent a lot of time with people, so have we. We know that Americans operate very differently. We keep talking about the way they operate. You go to the European countries, you will find people operate very differently. They are very stickler in terms of their time, personal time, discipline, delivery. They'll not, waste time at the workplace, and they'll be very, very focused in terms of productivity. And in India, you work very differently, right? So if you get this fact clear and map cultural, social nuances, as Nida was saying, and also the geopolitical ecosystem of those countries, it becomes very easy for you to get used to and also really make peace with what you are going to encounter. If you don't do it, then I think that it will always become very difficult to manage global talent in that space. And organizations which have talent spread across different countries, in our case, we have people in Singapore, we have in Dubai, we have also in Latin America, many other countries, maybe small workforce, but we have relevant number of people, and it's very important as a job professional to keep flipping your hat when you're interacting with somebody who's based out of UAE, then when you are talking to somebody who's in Hong Kong and somebody is in a different country. So that's very important. In our case, I feel that statutory compulsions, statutory obligations, and the legal framework of any country when it comes to talent are very different, and that basically helps you take calls. If you look at cultural nuances, as an HR professional, again, it's important for you to figure out what will work in which country. And your ability to look at the root cause of the issues rather than really trying to jump on the solution is very important. For an example, if you are sending somebody from India to take up a role maybe in Singapore or in Hong Kong or in a different country, if you are still operating from an INR mindset, then you are not going to do justice either to the organization or to the individual you are sending. You need to really get into that currency mode when you are looking at that. I think it's important to also do enough research, though there may be a lot of data available on the net, that how to do the compensation benchmarking, but most of the time people will look at very small little stuff and superficial stuff to really figure out how the benchmarks will happen, whereas it's important to get into the detail of that. Other important element of management is you have to be aware of the the way people are groomed and educated in those countries. if you find India basically teaches people to be very hard working from the college days, the way you are educated, the type of rigor you will have, the type of your preparedness expected that before you hit the job, I think you should be prepared. But there will be a lot of countries, a lot of other places wherein the focus is that you get the talent first and then groom them into the role. And that's why you'll see people may not be psychologists, but they are working in the marketing. There are people who are engineers working in the people function. So it's more to do with the skill and the temperament mapping rather than looking at people being coming through a very structured way of education. So I think many nuances, as Nida also mentioned, you need to be aware of the cultural nuances, you need to be aware of the social limitations, you need to be aware of the legal framework, you need to be aware of what drives people in those areas, you need to be aware of what sort of skill sets need to really be imbibed or rather transferred to people. If you create a framework around this, I think for any HR professional it becomes very, very interesting to map those areas and work on. That's what I'll say interesting.
So, so after working with Japanese culture, European and American, and now Indian, so 4 cultures I have seen. I come across as very aggressive for them because I talk a little loud. I'm more high on energy. So, which is in South Asian countries and Japanese, they feel, oh, she's very aggressive, right? So, I think even the tonality, even your volume, even your pronunciation, the punctuation, everything matters, even culturally and socially. So I think that also is something which we need to be very mindful that people are different there. As Yuvraj said, they have grown up in a different culture. So Indians come across high energy, and sometimes they may put off people in different cultures. So people are very different. They are rooted differently. So we need to be mindful of even that cultural difference in all these countries.
This, we'll also talk about diversity in the talent pool that we have. So I come from a place called Lucknow, and before a couple of years, it was very easy for us, to say anything to anyone. But recently, I would say maybe 10 years earlier, he realized that there is something that is called sensitivities of other people that you have to take care of, and you have to align well. And generally, when we induct younger talent into the organizations, so that sensitivity is not there. And with inclusion of other genders and women at workplace as well. So how do we cope up with those challenges? In hospitality, that's one thing that you're working on the shop floor through the nights and stuff. How do you manage that? And I'll put this question first to Pooja, then we'll come to Rahul to address that.
I think it's extremely important, and before we even embarked on the journey of OLX Autos, we are and still continue to be a classifieds company, and so I think our journey for this is the context of diversity and sensitivity and gender balance and all of that was already on, and it was there for a long time, except that it was not very well organized. And so I think the one thing that we did, which was slightly more aggressive in its journey, was we established a diversity council in the company where we had like 5 or 6 people who probably could influence a lot of change in the organization. And then we created ambassadors in the organization. But essentially, we used different modes in different countries that worked for them. For example, in India, we used theater to drive the message. We did not use the tell and do approach of orientation. We did not do the training, one-sided delivery training and some simulation to do that approach. We did theater-based programs in which we called event-based companies, and we created live examples from audiences, and then we enacted them out, and then that was the feeling that got generated. So there was a lot of self-discovery in that young generation, that if I was in that position, what would I have felt? And if I was experiencing that, what would have I felt? So there were the goods and the bads and the grays that come in the journey, and then you take a call as to where you want to draw a line, what you can do. At any point in time, a person is dealing with 150 biases, so it's practically impossible to get rid of them. But to be conscious of the bias is the most important element of being sensitive. And that's the journey any person can embark at any point in time. You don't have to really be in it to know everything, but you just need to be conscious that maybe you are in that zone and you can step back a little bit. And that was the journey we established in India. But in, let's say, Poland, what they did is they had actually storytelling. They had live people who had been through experiences who could come and do storytelling with them. And so there was a third gender person who came and who spoke why they left the previous company, because they couldn't be addressed as they or it. They were constantly being addressed as he, she. And they were being frustrated because they wanted to be called it. Now, it can be a big debate in the global market that, why is that the they and it? Now, keeping that aside, or keeping the debate aside, it was a sensitive topic for that person, and the person quit the previous company. So they told the story. And there were then many stories that came out on such topics, which were more awareness building. So you build awareness, then you create programs, and then you start instilling those programs in your policy. Because the moment you go the hard way on your policy, it sort of disrupts the people's mindset and it makes it difficult to adapt. So unless you build the awareness, it's very hard to adapt. You could sort of, also leapfrog into adaptation fast, but it's really important to create awareness and then some sort of action around it, and then build it into your policies. A lot of things we try to do, like masking of, I think most companies now do, wherever they do gender balance, they mask company resumes, where you don't know whether it's a male or a female's resume, but you do want to interview the candidate based on a resume. And so we tried that for our product and tech talent because we were not getting enough. And so from a 14%, it grew to around 17.5%, that talent base. So some of those practices were the ones that we sort of induced.
Rahul, we'll come back to you. And when we are talking about diverse workforces, you have a lot of female employees that are at your workplace. So how do you ensure the security for them that the talent is maintained? It shouldn't be like, okay, if it's an insecure place. And in hospitality, it is very important that your customers are secure and the people who are working with you are secure. Just a bit on that, if you can.
Yeah. Okay. If we talk about the security of female in hospitality industry, so now, as I already mentioned, so we already working on the culture, and we working on the revised policies, right, for females as well, right? So basically, the scenario has changed now. I mean, for female, so the working hours like 8 or 9. I mean, till 5 or till 6. So we have to think about this. So I mean, if earlier it was like, as sir has mentioned, I mean, the working hours was very like 9 to 10. I mean, 10 hours, 11 hours, 12-hour shift. So now we think and we rethink about the policies of our employees. So I mean, another day, I mean, I share the live example. So I was working with the stable hospitality. So some of the senior people came from Dubai. So sorry, Philippines. So I mean, they worked only 8 hours, like 9 to 5, and 5 o'clock they switch off their laptop and also and went to restaurant for wine and all. So everybody was looking at them. I mean, so we I mean, they are working 9 hours, 10-hour shift. So that is the reason. I mean, hospitality industry think about the policy, rethink about the policy. So yeah.
Thank you, Rahul. So we'll move to Mr. Yuvaraj once again.
Whenever you call my name, I get
Yeah.
scared. That
So-
what are you going to
So
drop?
again, from the diversity perspective, we'd like to understand more what MMT is doing at their end. And one question that I always have in mind, that when we are looking at diverse pools and inclusion of the people from maybe PWDs or the third genders and all that we are including. So what is the kind of ratios that you are maintaining, and how do you source that people, and how the inclusion of those people in global workplace can happen?
Okay, so let me just, I'll make 2, 3 points on this. Diversity, equity, inclusion, it's a very common conversation which is happening everywhere, right? Started maybe around 15 years back when the industry woke up to this reality that, I think there needs to be a better representation of the customers at the workplace. First thing is, I think that when you are looking at the diversity, there is a low-hanging fruit in terms of a gender diversity, which every organization looks at. And the moment you talk about diversity, everybody starts going and hiring women at the workplace, processes of hiring people, or the women at for the shop floor. That's one piece of it, but it's far more larger than this just gender diversity. Other point, what is important is the moment there are certain initiatives in every organization which should not be left to be democratically driven in the organization. And it should not really be seen as being driven from creating a sort of a buy-in or allies across the organization, things bubbling up from down to up. There are certain initiatives which are important to be led by the leadership. And when I'm saying leadership, CEOs, Group MD, Chairman, Board and all. And otherwise it doesn't really go down. And why it doesn't penetrate? Because these are not the initiatives which directly impact the business. Or even if they impact the business, it basically will have a bit of runway before it starts showing the results, right? And normally businesses will be more interested in focusing on areas which are immediate result driven. So diversity or any such initiative will always take a bit of time to get into the scheme of things of the organization. So, and these things need to be driven by the top leadership, walk the talk from the top, and then perhaps it starts working in the organization. So that is the second point. Third, in our case, even for all the industries, it's important to keep in mind that diversity does not really mean compromise on meritocracy. Most of the time when you'll go to the businesses and people will talk about this and say, hey, if I have two profile, how do I really equate? If somebody is better as a man, should I not really prefer that person? Again, important to send the message that it's not a question of you are compromising meritocracy. I think that every profile is different. In case there are some positives in one profile which is of a men profile, there can be certain other offsetting parameters which may be better in the women's profile. So how do you really get out of that initial stage of mindset of people when they get into this false debate of meritocracy versus position filling? Last is, you should not really go against the tide or the grain of the society the way it has evolved. What I mean to say is that in the engineering function, we have around 50-60% people who are engineers. I think as a society, as a country, we have not been able to bring in too many girls to the engineering colleges. Today, engineering colleges have 17%, 18% supernumerary seats for the girls to really join. So I think historically, that there have been challenges, and now the numbers of women or the girls going to the engineering colleges have improved, increased. Now, after 5 years, 10 years, there'll be a good bunch of people who would be available to lead the positions or be a part of the tech workforce. So in that, taking a target which is, 40% of the workforce would be of a women and a 60% of men is not something which is, right way to look at the targets. It's important to be aligned to the social reality, local realities. Till 5 years, 7 years back, still everybody had accepted that, shop floor is a place where only men will work. Now many organizations, and I'm sure that some of those would be represented here, things have started working to a state when the girls are also working on the shop floors because environment has changed. So unless social system changes, you can't really take things to the leapfrogging manner which are difficult to achieve. So I think it's important organizations to look at low-hanging fruits, quick wins in those areas, build on the mindsets of people and ensure there is no disparity or there is no discrimination based on the gender or the physical ability or the regional affiliations or the religious affiliations and all that. So that's very important. So in our case, coming to MakeMyTrip, I have very clear thought that, I will have the same approach in terms of engineering function. If I need to hire 10 people from the campuses, and if I have given a target that I need 40% girls in this, And if they are finding that they have only got 2 girls out of 10, I would still tell them that, okay, if you have a supernumerary seat, you go and hire 12 and get rest of the 2 girls as a part of the additional numbers to improve the ecosystem internally into the organization. So I think that there are a lot of things to be done, but it's important for organizations to be aware of what they can achieve, what they cannot achieve. And in our case, I think that we will have what? We'll have around 26-27% gender diversity. At the frontline level, we'll have around 25-30%. But at the same time, at a leadership level, it's a tech and product company. We struggle. I think SVP and above, I think that we don't have any women leader. My predecessor was a woman. And after that, in the leadership team of 10, 11 people, we have not had any women. So I think there are challenges at different layers. It's important to really be solved, keeping in mind what you are addressing rather than really taking a carpet approach and try to bomb it across the organization.
Sorry, I just wanted to add a point when you're talking about persons with disability. There was a point in time we wanted to introduce this topic very, very sensitively in the organization, and we realized that there was a bit of resistance. And like you said, that the fish thinks from the top. Unless you get the leadership buy-in and you want them to sponsor the program, it doesn't really work. It doesn't really penetrate into the organization. So we had the CEO sponsor a team, a disability team that would work on a content moderation for us in the classifieds team. We said, that's fine. You just give us excess capacity of 20 people and we'll work that as wonders for you. Use that as your CSR budget or from wherever it comes. We created that plan. And once we got that, we ran that as an experiment, and there was a precursor for it wherein we had to sensitize the whole organization that once those folks are in the office, what are your etiquettes of dealing with those folks? Because it was not to do it with them, to orient them, but it was to orient the general public of how to deal with them, right? And our infrastructure was not very well equipped for it. So we had to well equip first the infrastructure to get them to sort of walk around in the office or move around in the office. That's one. Second, I think what we sort of tried to do is we gave them a lot of flexibility on time. Our different sort of kinds of people were there in that group. And you won't believe it, it was over 200% of gain on productivity than a normal person in that team. And then they realized what things they could change to increase the productivity of the rest of the group. What are the tools that they could invent to increase the productivity of the rest of the group? So there were so many things that you could do, but because you're in a rut and you don't bring innovative thinking into it, because you're in that race of trying to do the same thing again and again with the same people, you don't break the monotony of cracking codes. And that was the change that we did. And to your point of not having women in the leadership team, I think this is my 12th year in a row that I've been the single woman on the leadership team. And unfortunately, it's HR. So it's like, oh, you're in HR, so you had to be here. But the fact of the matter is that when you're thick and thin into the business, you're driving that business decision. And so it's extremely important. So as people in HR also, we're very, very invested with that objective to drive the balance not only at the masses, but also in the senior leadership, because that's where decision making sits. If we are not able to influence that, I think we sort of struggle in that space. And so we also need to try a little bit more to infuse the change.
You're talking about larger organizations where you have representation in leadership by women. I'll give you one small example. This is my personal experience. I was running a training company back in 2013, and the Sexual Harassment Act came up, and in that we are trying to approach organizations that this is a mandate that you have to comply with it and do the trainings and stuff. So some of the organizations which were in SMEs, their owners responded that we don't need this because now we have stopped hiring women. So this is how compliance goes against some good thing that is supposed to happen. So with this, Nida, I would like you to address, because you are also leading the HR role. So how do you look at making more inclusive workplace for at least for women, and the third gender is obviously the next step in.
Thank you. So first of all, I think we stereotype. We stereotype that HR is women, and that's where the leadership stops there, that, okay, you have a CHRO, head of HR, she's women. So what I did, at least, so my fundamental says keep it simple. keep it agile. Don't don't unnecessarily complicate it. In my team, being in HR, there were more women. So I had to bring diversity, hiring men first in HR team. So I think that we stereotype that way that, okay, fine, it is shop floor. Don't hire women, it won't be safe. Don't hire a different language because you are operating a factory or a manufacturing facility in Pune, Chakan, or in Faridabad in interiors. So what we did in Pune, we actually sent our people from Faridabad. So we did not hire local Pune people, so that we have people. Internal mobility was very important. However, in terms of shop floor, what Yuvaraj just said, unnecessary, don't beat meritocracy. Don't hire women or anybody else or third generation or disabled or special person because you have to tick in the box. Hire when you can take care of them, when you can find productivity, when you can actually, from the first to the last person, encourage them. That's very important. So that's where I think we are keeping it simple. We are not trying to just do it for the heck of it. We are hiring more people from different. So for example, we have in Faridabad, we have people who are multilingual, people who are from, so we have people in Haryana working from, who actually, when they came, they did not speak Hindi. And people had to work because they were heading R&D or they were heading service. So our service head today is actually a Karnataka person. People are learning him and he's learning, the Hindi language. So both ways, we have given him time. So that's one example. The other example was Pune, where, very typical local people might be successful. But that's what we have tried doing it. And multi-generational. So we have the young generation of 19-year and then we have 65-year-old in the same. We are trying to be flexible, customize, but there are core foundation which is non-negotiable. And rest is flexible. We can't fit everybody in the same box. We have different programs, different initiatives. However, there are non-negotiable core values which everyone falls same. So I think keeping it simple.
I'd come back to you with the final remark that you have about global talent management and what are the opportunities. Just a quick answer because we are about to close the panel now.
Everybody wants it, but we also, so PwC did one survey. I think there's a report that 75 people says that they are conscious, they want to promote diversity. Out of those 75%, only 32% said it hinders the growth. So I think keep it simple, be flexible, find out what is most important, non-negotiable, rest, customize. Keep flowing, keep it simple.
Thank you. Rahul, your closing remarks.
As ma'am has said about the female part, like government has also, said about the 30% of the total manpower of in hospitality industry of female. So we also working on this, but if we talk about the back end, like HM colleges, so parents are not interested to to encourage their children to get admission in hospitality or HM. So this is the challenge which we are facing. So concluding point, like we need to think about selection. Recruitment policy. We need to rethink about culture. We need to think about training part also. So yeah, we have to work on that.
Thank you, Rahul. So Pooja, your closing remarks.
Look, I think from an opportunities standpoint, if you were to look at a global workforce, I think distances have shortened, connection has increased. There's more technology that you can leverage to sort of manage your talent brilliantly. And therefore, I think you should latch on if you have the ability and capability to upskill. Like I said in the beginning, that you have to train your people so well that they're willing to leave you, but you have to treat them really well so that they're willing to stay with you. And in the process, I think leverage AI to improve experiences. Leverage generative AI to sort of increase the learnability increase the skill quotient of your organization, and therefore free up talent to do much more innovative work, because the market is growing in terms of different opportunities, and so the same things are not working anymore. And the ability to break that barrier is extremely important, and therefore I think that's one area that I think I would look up to in the next 10 years, of how technology of artificial intelligence or AGI is really going to make the difference in this sector of change of skill management.
So I'll sum up once Yuvaraj has given his comments. You want to take questions?
No, I'm saying that if you have any questions, you can take from audience, or I'll save you some time by keeping my closing
it's up to
remarks.
you. So do we have any questions from the audience?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for all your comments. Just a quick question on numbers that we look at, especially when you're talking about D&I. As you rightly said, the definition of inclusion has increased, but what do you do about just taking one aspect of it, which is women, the leadership positions and women on board? So if you look at women on board, we are still at 19-20%, and that also because of corporate laws. If you look at women on leadership positions, you yourself gave the example of your company, but it is dismal in terms of 14% average national numbers. So what is it as not just HR, but the entire ecosystem that should be done? Because we always talk about what's not happening, but what are those three things that we should do?
It's a very, very good question. I think that you're right. See, at the top leadership level, how you really increase numbers, it's not important for you to, always look at those numbers coming from outside. Because when you look at the leadership teams, a lot of times organizations are also very, very keen to get people who are culturally aligned with the organization, because the whole current flows from there. So you need to have the right set of people. I think as organization, it's good to really work at the grassroots to ensure that the right talent is getting groomed into the organization. Till few years back, if I had to really look at my -3 or -4 levels, we had huge number of people. -2, -1, we did not have people at the leadership level. I think those numbers have flourished. And now we are saying that only it's a matter of time wherein you reach to the level wherein you also have leadership team representation of a, women representation. So I think it's only a matter of time when you reach to that. And as far as HR is concerned, I think one should always advocate this process. Many times HR professionals themselves are very skeptical about the whole DEI as a concept. And audience is very perceptive. The moment business or anyone senses that your own commitment and conviction is weak, then what happens? The negative energy flows into the system. It doesn't really take off the way you would like it to really be taking off. Like talent management, training, learning, development, I think clear conviction comes from the HR professionals, HR teams. When it comes to DEI, you'll see most of the time, and with all due respect to everybody in every function, most of the time, in case somebody has some time available or somebody is not in position to do any mainstream role, within HR also it will be considered as a DEI somebody is driving, which is not immediately resulting. So I think, how do you really make DEI also as a mainstream role within HR teams? Today you talk about compensation and benefit, you talk about talent management, you talk about talent acquisition. Do you also talk it in the same breath when it comes to DEI as an initiative? I also feel that it's important that DEI should not really be driven by the organizational HR function as such. It's important for it to really have a council, as Pooja was talking about. There needs to be a larger, when it comes to cost management in the organization or cost efficiency, is it that only finance function works? It doesn't. Everybody starts working on it, right? Every function. So in the similar way, when it comes to diversity, equity and inclusion, in our case, we have a CTO who's driving it. And CTO has a team of 10 people who are from different functions. I'm not a part of it. From a couple of people from my team are the supporters, facilitators, but I completely keep myself out of it. And I don't want it to be seen as a HR metric. I want it to be seen as an organizational metric. And you need to get the right people to do that. And we included people in DI after taking their applications, that who all are interested in coming and becoming a part of the council. So if you are interested, you think that you can create an impact, please come and join. And then we met people and then made a team of 10. So that becomes far more inclusive and also highly statured in terms of an organization. So I think HR can really create that sort of a culture, processes, and be patient where it can really take you over a period of time. It is not a quick fix. You can't do it in a year's time. You need to have a journey defined for it. That's how I'll answer. Long answer to a short question. In fact, when I was, my founder was saying, यार कोई L team में, leadership team में है नहीं for last so many years. Yuvaraj, let's hire somebody, will see that what sort of roles are available. If you don't do it, then I'll have to ask you to go through a gender change, then only it can happen. So I think it can go to that extent, but reality is that you need to ensure that meritocracy is given due credence.
And I think you made a very valid point on the board inclusion as well. But I think beyond the government, regulations, it's also important for women to make themselves present and visible. Nothing is going to come like a hot pot to you and, you're going to sit and drink your tea. You also will have to work towards it. And so I think it has to be a marriage of the two events to come together. Number one. But number two, I think, I don't know how right the data is, but I think there are 2,000 or 3,000 independent director churns that are going to happen in the next few months or something like that. So I've been hearing that. I don't know. I truly myself also would like to participate in that journey. But the fact of the matter is, how many people really know about it? How many people really know how do you actually become an independent director or how do you get onto the board? Itself is not very clear to people. And unless you get to that level of awareness, you don't know. And it all boils down to the fact is, once there's awareness, there will be action. If there isn't awareness, there won't be any action. So I guess, as responsible corporate citizens, we also have to infuse a little bit more awareness and create that versus, and if there are boards where there are family members, then probably they will have to propagate that for an outside audience to come and join the board.
I'll only conclude. So I think it is about fair opportunities and chances. People have to grasp. People have to grab those opportunities. There should be fair opportunities for everybody, every gender, irrespective of gender or whatever, nationality. People should come up and take that. That awareness and inhibition has to go away and awareness has to come.
Thanks, Priyanka, for extending our session. So with this, I would like to thank my panelists, Yuvaraj, Priya, Pooja, Rahul, and Nida. Thanks for joining us.